Yellow, blue, black, PowerHouse is back. Welcome back, y'all.
Oh my goodness.
PowerHouse, we're in the house.
Hello. We're here.
We are here. Dan
I'm
Turbyville. Dan
Yeah.
Turbyville. Zach Shue. We're PowerHouse Finch Show, baby.
Coming at you.
Yeah, that's nice.
Thanks. That was the best one
Thanks
I've ever
everyone
had.
for tuning in. Welcome to the show. Presented by Memphis Fence Company, MFC Manufacturing, Simpalo, partnering with Thornton Fence Consulting Group. There's a link in the description here for Tony's events. You got a www.com for those who can't see the link.
Looks like it's
All right.
fenceconsultinggroup.com/calendar.
Cool. Good deal. We are here. We're not live. This is pre-recorded. Life has been happening to us.
It does.
Or with however that works. I'm having a life.
Life just happens, I think.
Right. Having a life.
Yeah. I had to so Thursday I'll be somewhere. I can't be here.
Cool.
And so here we are on Wednesday.
Right. So not live, pre-recorded.
Sorry. Next week we'll be live though.
That's right.
And next week we'll be live with Dan Wheeler here as our guest.
In studio?
No.
Okay.
I was like, is he coming?
You said
No.
here, man. I was confused.
No, we'll be live. So we'll be there in the virtual there-ness of whatever that is.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, but we'll be live. So that's cool. This week, we're going to continue what we talked about last week.
More of the things to look out for, pitfalls or just things that might happen.
Things that might happen. Yeah. So I don't know. You know, it started with Dan Wheeler asking, what's the biggest mistake? One.
And what are you doing to try to solve that, sidestep that, or something like that? Is that it? No,
Yeah,
that was a different question.
I think it was just, what's the mistake?
Okay.
What's the biggest mistake that people make? Something about general contractors, you know? And so my answer to that question took 2 hours of airtime to answer.
Nice. So we're answering it some more.
Yeah, we're not done yet.
Right. So it technically overall will have taken 4 hours of airtime. Is that what you're saying?
No. This
is the 2 hours. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you meant you spent 2 hours with Dan Wheeler talking about this already.
No. Nah, we're talking about it here. We talked about it last week. We talked about it a minute when he asked the question.
And I have some personal experience to add to this
Do you?
session today, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
All right. We're gonna hear about it. We're gonna hear it.
Cool. What have you been reading and listening to?
I've kind of just been listening to some music.
Me too, man. Me too.
You know, I listen to Founders, and I mean, I listen to just an array of podcasts, but I really think since we recorded last time, I've kind of just been like, I'm going to chill out on that for a minute.
Cool. Yeah, a band I'm really into. Took a break for the winter. They got a new drummer. And so I've been really like getting deep into the first few shows of this the summer tour or spring tour and trying to see like how's the new drummer sound? Are they going to be the same band? What's going on? You know, so I've been into that.
Yeah.
Listen, the band's called Goose. I've been listening to a lot of Goose the past few days. I don't work for them. I just listen to them.
Right.
And you know, drive 2,000 or 3,000 miles to see them sometimes.
That's crazy.
Right.
That's crazy. So I just did it because I felt like I was driving myself insane
right.
A little bit by being like super engaged in some form of business, not necessarily just the fence industry all the time. But, you know, I would leave the house in the morning, listen to a podcast, come into work here, leave, listen to it going home.
Right.
And I was like, wait a minute. Maybe I need to like just kind of
take a break,
take a little break sometime from it.
Air out or whatever you want to call that.
Right.
Yeah.
So then I just listened to someone like yell at me on the radio.
Cool.
you know, while Zena's in the back
This
back
music's
seat.
the best music. You're really relaxing now.
What if we?
Actually, that's not what I listened to on the way home. Sometimes here, I listen to some crazy stuff like that. But anyways, so I still would like to give an update on how our, new system is working with bidding jobs and all of that stuff. But we're going to save that for another day. We're just going to keep teasing it. And maybe here in a few weeks, we'll
have a system to actually talk about. Oh, did I say that out
man.
loud?
We got something. I think it's working pretty
No,
well.
I'm just kidding.
No.
It needs some tuning, but that's how it works.
Yep.
You build an engine, you put it in the car, you tune it the best you can on a stand, and then once you put it practical use, right?
Mm-hmm.
We need some fine tuning.
Yep. So that's where we are. Thanks, listeners. Thanks, everybody, tuning in, checking us out.
All the participants in the PowerHouse Fin Show.
We made it to more than 2,000 listeners. That's pretty good.
Nice.
Yeah, I think like 2250 is our download count on our podcast now.
We owe it all to Eladia.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eladia, for being behind the scenes
Of course,
and
fun.
on camera sometimes. Obviously, everybody that's been a part of our journey, all the previous guests, obviously Thornton Consulting Group, Dan Wheeler's been a pretty heavy proponent or, participant.
He likes us.
And that's cool. It's cool when people say, we like you.
Yeah.
Kind of makes it, more exciting to do.
Oh, so. Like when Luke called and was like, what did he say? His dad or somebody else that he knew?
I think one of the older employees of the company he worked for or something.
Maybe something like that.
Yeah.
He was like, finally a podcast where people talk about something I care about.
That's pretty cool.
So that's cool. Yeah, it's neat. Feedback is cool because like it takes a pretty decent amount of energy, maybe even like some discipline, I don't know, to sit down and like create an agenda for a show and then sit here and do the show and all that. So it's cool to get some feedback and
right.
For us to
brings us to thanks for listening, but also give us some feedback.
Right.
Ask us for what you want us to talk about. We'd love to talk about that. You know, ask us to expound on a subject we've already talked about. Next event we're going to be attending is this weekend in Tunica, Mississippi at the Gold Strike Casino. Is that correct?
Either
way,
some stuff is there. Some is at Tunica National
Golf Course.
Yep. So we'll be down there for the golf tournament.
Which is this weekend, the 17th and 18th.
Yeah. This weekend. So before, I booked hotel rooms for the wrong weekend.
Right.
And we had been talking about it for a month leading up to it.
17th and 18th. And
yeah. And I screwed that up. But
anyway, the next show after that, we'll be going to the West Coast show, which is in Reno, Nevada. Booths number 516, 518. That's September 5th and 7th. I don't know if it's been official yet, but there's been some discussion about trying to expand the show because of the
it's official.
Rate. Okay, it's been official. So the show has expanded by, what did they say?
10,000 square
10,
feet and 24 booths, I think.
Right.
So we don't know what our booth number is going to be. It might change on account of that.
It was 516 and 518.
Yeah, but we'll be there either way.
That's September 5th through the 7th. I may have said that, but come check us out. It's a pretty cool thing. We are soliciting you all to see if anyone would be interested in, and maybe even participate in, a potential 4-week series on reading a plan set and including specs. Hosted by, obviously, Dan and potentially myself. Maybe we'll pull in Claiborne on that.
Maybe.
It'll be,
it would be cool.
Speaking of plans, you use a handy-dandy software to view plans when viewing plan sets. Is that correct?
Yeah.
What is that software called?
I can't remember.
But it's simple. It's something simple.
Right. It has a simple name. I don't know.
Simple. That'd be a good name for an estimating software.
Right.
That'd be a good name for an estimating software. Simpalo. Sounds good.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? I was going to say something earlier and I forgot. And now I'm just sitting here thinking, what was I going to say? It sucks when that happens.
It makes for terrible television.
It does. Yeah. So the whole 4-week thing, you'd get to see some stuff on Simpalo because I'd probably use that some in this teaching endeavor. But it would be cool. I think just to kind of like, and some of the stuff we're going to talk about today actually would be things that we would talk about during those
Right.
4 hours there. So
Right. Things to look for, things to avoid, things you may not see or overlook, some
Yep.
stuff like that. It might just be fun to put a set of plans down on the table and all point and laugh at them.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
sometimes.
So that's going to be like the start. Is
Right.
look at this.
Here, I just got this plan for fence.
Right.
It
Super-
says, yeah,
It's
I sent an RFI. They said, do what's on the plans.
Mm-hmm. He just held up a blank white thing
Blank white sheet of paper.
for anyone listening. But yeah, that's what we get sometimes, and we just have to do the best we can. Would you like to do an intro to this segment?
Now is time for Tool Time with Dan the Toolman Turbyville.
There we go. Thanks, Zach. So we made some videos looking at trucks.
We did.
Yeah. I don't know if any of them have been like posted yet or not. What you got, Ilaria?
No, yeah, but one is ready, and I'm gonna post it as soon as we're done here, so people can see it
Nice.
today.
Nice. So you'll get to
Cool.
see a truck.
So we love Hilti Tools. So I'm going to go ahead and say it. We use the crud out of Hilti Tools. My main thing when I was running an install truck was the Hilti battery powered hammer drill. And mind you, this was like 10 years ago.
Mhm.
Was a beast. You
Mhm.
could not exhaust the battery. At that time, some of the other tool makers, like DeWalt, for instance, their batteries were dying a lot, and then not just dying, but dying permanently.
Yeah.
Whatever, however you call that.
Yeah, their new batteries seem to be a little bit better, but man, DeWalt batteries for a while, it would be like they're good for a little bit, and then
So-
they just crap out all the time.
Side by side, and being able to, I mean, imagine you build a gate, set a gate. A lot of times we were installing stuff on concrete,
Mhm.
and then you're like, crap, I forgot the drop rod. Just jump out of the truck with the battery powered Hilti hammer drill. Done.
Yep.
It's amazing.
Yep.
So that was my first introduction where I really fell in love with Hilti
Mhm.
in that respect. But the tools are awesome. We recently bought some of the newer battery packs, man, and they are again smoking the other companies like battery life.
Miguel has a bandsaw.
Dude, I used it. It's like half the weight of the age-old Milwaukee.
And
Corded.
Miguel, he told me the other day, he said, man, that battery on that thing, he said it lasts a week.
Right.
And he's like, it takes
Same-
a while to charge, but he
same
said
with the angle grinder.
it lasts forever.
And it's
crazy.
beast, man.
So
Beast. So we really dig them. They are expensive, but they are worth it in my opinion. The battery life, not to mention we've been able to trade in some of the broken tools
Mhm.
and get some credit on the new tools. And they have a bunch of different options for purchasing and kind of fleet and all that stuff. Now they've got a lot of tools are doing this. Milwaukee now has this product too, where it's like a geolocation or whatever. You can track where your tool is.
Yeah.
You just have an app on your phone. And
I think Hilti will let you like temporarily fleet some of the bigger tools, right?
Yeah.
So if you needed like a $3,000 or $4,000 tool for a month, I think you could like rent it for a month from them.
right. That's right.
We don't have any experience with that, but I think our sales rep was telling us about it.
That's right.
So
That's been pretty good. It's been pretty cool to kind of initiate the relationship with the sales rep. I mean, for a while we've been just buying stuff from
the website.
Right.
Yeah.
And so to have him come talk to us about specialty bits and blades for a specific job we did recently.
Oh yeah. The dreaded bridge.
But I mean, they were available.
Yep.
And then when we ran out of some anchors or needed some other anchors, it was cool to have a rep that was knowledgeable of a product. And so hopefully you have a Hilti rep in your area.
Yep.
So
I think that's kind of like what got me going on Hilti initially, because it was after I bought Memphis Fence somehow, like when we started buying the first Hilti tools. And I don't even remember like what we bought at first, but I wish I could remember the story a little better, but one thing I figured out early on was like we have a Hilti rep,
Right.
and when you need something, you have a guy that you can pick up the phone, or a gal. I assume there are female Hilti reps too, but
Haven't seen one.
yeah. So we have a guy we can pick up the phone and call and be like, "Hey, can you help us with this?" And I mean, they'll like do work and help you figure out the tool or the bit or whatever that you need to do it. That's really nice about Hilti. That's awesome. Their warranty is pretty good. Their batteries have always been good. I know I think the first time we ever turned in a battery to see if it was under warranty, it was 7 years old. So obviously it wasn't under warranty, but just to kind of like say the battery lasted 7 years before we turned it in. We've ran over tools that have been replaced under warranty. That really was surprising to me. I think that's happened twice. We've
2
had a
different
truck
times. Yeah.
run over a tool and they warrantied it.
Yeah. An impact. Somebody set it on the fender and then ran over it. And then
Yeah.
we were able to, they warrantied it out.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So we have some Milwaukee tools. I think Milwaukee is pretty solid too. Of the like brands you can go to a store and buy something, I think Milwaukee would be the one I would buy.
Part of that comes from us doing work for them, and they require us to use Milwaukee in the Milwaukee warehouse.
Yeah. So we showed up with like some DeWalt or Hilti or whatever to do a job at Milwaukee, and they're like, no, you can't do that here. So
I think that's cool.
Yeah. So we had to buy like a whole set of Milwaukee tools just to go work in their place. And so we've got a little bit of experience using them. I personally have a couple of Milwaukee tools. They've got some stuff like in the automotive kind of world that Hilti and DeWalt and other people don't make.
Right.
So you see a lot of it there, but yeah, I've got a couple of them. They seem to be okay.
Yeah. For a corded angle grinder, my favorite is the DeWalt 11 amp.
Yep.
Paddle switch.
Yep.
It's fantastic. I mean, we have some here that I think have been here since I started, 9-10 years ago.
Since I was born, maybe. Yeah.
So, and some of them, I mean, we've replaced the brushes, but I did have to say goodbye to a couple recently, but they last forever.
Yeah.
So for a corded option for angle grinders, the DeWalt is money. Comfortable to hold. As far as the safety switch is easy to actuate. There's some where you have to like hold the grinder with one hand, push the safety switch with another hand, then start the tool to operate, then grab the handle. It seems
and the
cumbersome and unsafe. So
the ones that have that toggle switch where it's just on or off, those are the worst.
Right. I have one of those. That's what I have in my house.
Yeah.
And the key to just like thumb switch, and it's like it's not even in a convenient place where you could turn it off if you were in danger.
Right. You have to like relocate your hand somewhere to flip the switch. Nah.
Right.
Those
So
things are the worst.
safety wise and longevity, that DeWalt 11 amp paddle switch is the jam, man.
Yeah.
It's my favorite.
We have some DeWalt power tools around too. Like
we do
battery powered stuff. We don't like to have 3 different brands on one truck. Like, I think that's the biggest thing of it, right? Is to me, it's really annoying when I have to have multiple different types of batteries and chargers and all that kind of stuff. So I definitely want something that I can have one brand and be able to, just charge with one charger and use the same batteries on everything. That's a big deal, in my opinion. So any more to add about the tools?
Not really.
I think we pretty much touched on most of the like power tool stuff that we use. We have some Hilti like electric breakers. Those things are phenomenal. Core drill machines, they're great.
Yep.
We used to run Bosch electric breakers, and we might still have 1 or 2 of those things around. But I remember when we first got our first electric breaker from Hilti, it was like it competed with the pneumatic ones that you have to like drag the trailer air compressor and all. So all that stuff is pretty good. But, the Bosch ones that we have are probably 20 years old. So it's not a fair comparison like that.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it for
tool time is
this
over.
Concludes tool time.
All right.
Now it's time for the Italian word of the week with Ilaria.
Okay.
The word of the week is meeting.
Well, so just to be fair, we say most of the time meeting, but it could be incontro.
Okay, incontro.
Slay.
Encuentro?
No, bad.
Do again?
Incontro.
Oh, so it really encontro. Encontro.
No, incontro. Close it. Close the O at the end.
Encontro.
No, incontro.
Okay, moving on.
Yeah.
Enough of that.
It's just
You'd
like
think
you
you
don't
would
talk
get-
with the accent from Milan, so I get upset.
We're gonna
You
start.
think you would get better over time,
We're-
but there's some sort of phenomenon where it just gets worse.
I'm gonna start making Ilaria say some country words.
Oh yes, please.
Yeah. So Ilaria, your country word for the week is yuns.
What?
Nobody says that.
I don't even know what he means.
People do say that. So we say y'all.
Okay, I know y'all.
Yeah, you go
You
like
did good, y'all.
in the backwoods, and they say yuns instead of y'all.
Oh my god.
Yes.
So no, you're not even gonna try
Say it again. I'll do it.
yuns.
Yawns.
Oh, there you go. That's too easy. All right.
I think I'm going to give you another word. It's where you're planning to do something, but you haven't quite done it yet, but you're soon to try something or do something. It's fitna.
Fitna.
Right. Like I'm finna change topics and start the show.
Okay.
Right?
All right. So let's do it. Let's get serious.
Yeah, we finna do this.
I think, man, we've spent 20 minutes getting to this point. Okay. So last week, we started off saying these are the top mistakes we believe that people make getting into the general contractor world. And I'll just kind of run through these few mistakes that we talked about last week. Mistake number 1, thinking you're going to have all the information you need or want for a job. Mistake number 2 was not knowing your numbers, your financials, or how to bid a job. And then mistake number 3, not understanding the billing and cash flow and how that works with general contractors. Again, these are not necessarily in any order, and these are based on all of our experiences and our opinions, and we would love to hear other opinions or experiences if you have them. So today, we're going to continue on with mistake number 4. Mistake number 4, not paying attention to the details. The details are such a big deal whenever you're bidding a job, when you are preparing submittals for a job, and then when you're installing a job. Details are very important with all of that. And so I'll give you kind of a little rundown of what I'm talking about here. So when you're bidding a job, you need to read all the specs, right? And I don't mean sit there and read 1,400 pages, but read enough of it to get what you need. So obviously you're going to have to read the specs for the fence material, gates, automation, access controls, all of that type of stuff that you're touching, right? Read the spec sections for those, obviously. Traditionally, the specs are going to take precedence over the drawings. I've seen one job that specifically said that drawings took precedence over specs, but that's a really rare thing. I would say, as a rule of thumb, specs take precedence over the drawings. So you're going to want to see if the job has a wage rate. You don't want to miss that. Although nowadays, in most of the jobs we run into, the wage rates all seem to be kind of dated. So we're already pretty
Right.
much covered on all of the wage
What was
rate stuff.
The bridge was like $12 an hour.
Right. Yeah. So a lot of that stuff is pretty dated, and you don't have to, pay people more, but you want to look at it and
So
make
don't
sure.
make this mistake, but don't pay too close attention to wage rate.
No, you'll get surprised sometimes, and they'll
just
have some in there that are pretty crazy.
Well, for skilled people like welders and stuff, I think we were seeing some pay scale that was a little bit different.
Yep. So some of the iron worker kind of stuff, and that
Right.
kind of gets into our world a little bit with ornamental fence, especially when people are welding on ornamental
Welding,
fence in the
right.
job site. And I mean, you might have some of those jobs where it might be $50 an hour, $55 an hour. And you don't want to bid a job where you've got 300 of those hours in there and be like, oh, crap, I missed that.
Bid it at my normal rate of 35 an hour or
Right.
whatever. Right.
Yep. So does the material need to be domestic? It's also
Ooh.
an important one, because you'll find out that you bid the wrong stuff like after you've signed a contract and when you're sending in submittals.
Has that happened to you before?
Yeah, but I don't remember the job. It's been a long time ago. I pretty much know like a good indicator is if it has government money in it.
Right.
And
So like TVA
yep.
for us would be one that I would immediately think.
So DOT
it's
stuff,
probably going to need to be
TVA, anything from, any local city, county, state, anything
Right.
like that. Those
Some
are
of them- Have you seen any of it on any of the SAM.gov jobs we've looked
oh
at?
yeah, those are all
Gonna be-
domestic. Yeah.
Mm.
And there's stuff in there that there's like some loopholes, right? To where if it's not readily available
Long
or
lead times for material acquisition.
and I think they have some stuff about like the cost of it. To where if it's a certain amount more to buy domestic, that may be a way that you could not, I can't remember exactly, but there is some stuff. But anyways, the point is like you want to make sure that when it has to be domestic that it is domestic. Do people have to go through background
This is one
checks,
that I am up against right now.
drug test, or any type of special training for the job?
So they want us to do a criminal background check with including fingerprinting.
mhm,
This is at a school,
mhm,
so for obvious reasons.
right?
So not, but just something I personally haven't come up against yet.
Yeah.
Um,
So a lot of times with that stuff, I think what I told you was they'll like tell you who the background check has to be done through and things like that. So they'll have like a service that I don't know, are in some sort of agreement with some company that does the background checks for them that's up to whatever standards they have. And so there is a cost, like we have to pay for the background checks, then we have to pay people to go there and have the
Yeah,
background
right,
checks
the
done and
time.
everything.
involved. So I think this service was $150 per person.
Yep.
So,
150 a person, and then you have to pay people for half a day or a day or whatever to go
right.
do it.
We ain't burning, we ain't earning.
And there you go. Same thing with the drug test and the training and all, like, you have to pay whatever it costs plus pay people to go do it. Sometimes you see jobs that have to be done at odd hours, maybe nights, weekends, things like that. I bid a job not too long ago that had limitations on the decibel rating or the decibel levels that you were allowed to, like, that someone could hear inside the building. So if you were going to create more than, I don't know, 80 decibels or 70 decibels or something like that inside the building, then you had to schedule it 3 days in advance and all of this stuff. So there's a lot of weird requirements like that. So spend time looking at the drawings and make sure that you're not missing any notes on the drawings, or if there's an addenda or RFI responses or anything like that that comes out, make sure you don't miss the notes that are on them.
Are you talking to me? I did this
Yesterday.
I did this. I submitted the proposal, and one of the contractors, one of the 4 I bid to, said, "Are you sure you read addendum 2?" And I was like, "Yeah, man, of course." And then I looked at the very bottom, and most of the changes were in red. So I looked at the red writing, and then
Right.
at the bottom it was like, "Note: a double gate has been added," which included a significant amount of specialty hardware and all that stuff, which obviously has its own, set of resources that would need to be applied to that.
So fortunately, it was like then, right? Because it could be after you get a contract and you're doing the job and they're like, "Hey, don't forget you got to put that gate over there." And you're like, "Wait, what?"
What gate?
And so this was probably like $4,000 or so just for the gate hardware.
Yeah, that's right.
And then, of course, the gate was what, 3,000 or something like that. So, I mean, it's a pretty decent bit of money that you easily could have missed. Another thing you see a lot is, like trucker cages. I think I've mentioned them a few times where you'll see that you might be bidding a warehouse and there's fence going all the way around the outside and gates and all of this stuff. And you don't even notice that there's a trucker cage, or some other type of enclosure inside the warehouse. So those are,
And then you'll be bound by the contract to perform all of the work in the scope.
Yep.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yep. So you and it just depends on the contractor, like how that's going to work out. People can freaking dangle that contract over your head 100%. There are people out there that will do it, but there's also people out there that are reasonable and they're like, oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. It wasn't on your proposal. Sucks you missed it. Give us a price, you know. So that happens. So next time that you want to be careful of your details is when you're doing submittals. And so now is your opportunity to like tell them what you're actually going to do. I did see a contract here recently that said even if your submittals are approved, they do not like supersede the requirements of the specs. Right. So even if you went in and you turned in submittals saying that you were going to use 20 weight pipe on everything and the spec said 40, they signed off on the submittals, sent it back to you, and you got caught with 20 weight material on the site. Well, it doesn't matter that they approved the submittals. You still are required to put in the 40 weight. So just be aware of that. But anyways, so of course we want to spec, we want to put all of our fence material, the wall thicknesses, the coatings, where it comes from, all that kind of stuff that in your submittals. And then your gate operators, like, so what I do is I make drawings, right, that has everything labeled on it. And then I'll include product data from the manufacturers of the pipe and the chain link fabric and the fittings and all of that stuff. And then I'll include similar stuff for like the gate operators and card readers, telephone entry. I mean, just whatever access control stuff you're using on there, the fire department access stuff, any safety devices that are going on the gates, the safety devices, not if any are going, right? Just to be clear. But I just try to like put all of that in there. And I mean, sometimes a submittal package, I mean, those things will get like 70, 80, 90 pages long on some jobs, and it's crazy. Sometimes you do them and they're like 2 pages, right? It kind of just depends on the job. But
I think this is applicable to a small business as well, or even not necessarily from the bidding to general contractors perspective, but I started building out these like proposal packages for business to business. Instead of just listing a name like a Lockanox Lucky J surface mount mortise lock, like not everyone knows what the heck that is.
Yeah.
And maybe no one knows what that is, just the one architect who's spec'd it before or whatever. But to add a little picture, like you're saying, a little product spec sheet, and kind of make a little collage. For doing residential customers and then the business to business stuff, I started basically making a little collage of the hardware that was going to be used on the job.
Yeah.
So they not only do they see what it is, they can search it by the name, but there also is a little image.
Yeah.
So I think this is one thing that's kind of applicable across the board.
Did you ever see the ones that we used for residential wood? No. So we had just like some generic drawings, and they had so it had like an elevation of the fence, and it had everything labeled on there, what type of pickets, what type of runners, it had the footing sizes, and then it had like pictures of all the gate hardware.
Cool.
And it had pictures of the nails and all that kind of stuff in there too. So yeah, 100%. I agree with you. People are not going to spend the time to look up whatever this Lockanox model number thing. There'd be some people out there, but for the most part, they're not going to spend the time to look it up. They don't care what it means. Hey, this reminds me of something. So I came in this morning telling a story,
right?
And it's pretty interesting to me. A family friend, she called me one day last week, or sent me some pictures one day last week of her driveway, and there was a hole. So she has a gravel driveway. There was a hole in the ground, and it was like a cavern down in this hole. And it was right by a culvert where a pretty decent sized creek runs through there. And so I sent her the number of a person that I knew that would come out and, fix it properly, I'll say. So they got a price, and nobody listening knows anything about this. So $7,800. Well, then, so I talked to her after she had gotten that price, and she's like, "Oh, I don't know. That's just a lot of money. I don't know if I'm going to do that." Da 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 da. So this guy was going to dig out the whole driveway, replace the culvert. She had head walls on either side of it. Replace those with like riprap, and I mean, basically redo the whole driveway around the culvert there for $7,800. So they run into this guy, and this guy comes out and takes a look at it, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we can fix that thing. We'll just put some gravel down there around the culvert, pack it in, and then you'll have a driveway. And we'll do that for, I think, 4,800 is what they paid him." And so nothing is being fixed with the culvert, right? The bottom of their culvert is rotten out, old metal culvert. And so they paid him this $4,800 to come out and just put some gravel and pack it around the old culvert, and he's on his way. So I came in here this morning, I said, you know what? You think about that. They didn't care that they were getting less, right? They didn't care that it was not being fixed the right way, maybe right way. That all they cared about was that it was cheaper. And so I thought that was a pretty interesting look into like the mindset of maybe your average consumer. And so they had this person do it for $4,800. I think they did it yesterday, and I mean, super thrilled to have it done. So people, this particular person was like, "Oh, the price is less. I'll do that." So
Well, and back to the Toyota way, maybe the observation that giving the customer more than what they want is waste.
right, and
I mean,
so I agree. And fixing it the right way was more than what they
So-
wanted.
to follow up with my extensive detail, dissertation about put all the photos and all the product names. Some people
Right.
want that, some people don't. They don't
Right.
even know like what that. I sent one to one person. They were like, I can't tell where the price is.
Right. Yeah, this looks pretty, but where's the price?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so I just sent them a price.
Right. Yeah. It's crazy. And it's hard for me because when I'm a consumer, I like to know what am I getting.
Yeah, I do too. I do research and compare and read reviews and all kinds of stuff, and wait for 3 months before I make a purchase.
Yep. Yep. I do that a lot. And so I'm having a generator installed at my house right now. Friday and Tuesday they're doing it. And so just to kind of show that like I like to save money too. I bought the generator myself
Right.
and like negotiated with a couple of different vendors, not against one another, but just was like, "Hey, what if I provide the generator? Then how much could you install it for?" And kind of went through all of that. I wanted to make sure everybody was cool with me providing the generator because we don't like when people provide fence material. So, I mean, I did ask them before we went
Yeah, I
down
was
that
about to
path.
say, I hate that.
Yep. But I asked them before I went down that path, and what I figured out was they had a substantial markup on that generator. I mean, like 100% markup on the generator.
Mm.
And so by me providing the generator, and I poured the concrete slab for it to sit on, a little concrete pad out there. And I've got the generator sitting down there and everything. So I was able to save a pretty good bit of money by doing that. So I get saving money, but at the same time, I went through everything with both of them. And I was like, okay, I'm going to provide the generator. It says it comes with this switch in it, all of this stuff.
Sure.
I want to make sure that like you're providing all of the electrical wiring, running the gas lines, doing all of this. And so, I mean, I kind of spent time making sure that they were both doing the same thing. It was all apples to apples. So, I mean, like I said, it's kind of hard for me just to be like, "Oh, you have a cheaper price, I'm hiring you." But anyways, details are important, I guess, only to some people
Right.
when you're
that's right.
selling something.
Yeah, I mean, one of the general contractors I working with currently is kind of like, whatever, man.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
Yep. Some of them are like
I'm
that.
like, the podcast, the boss and the podcast, they make me, I'm supposed to, the details. He's like, okay, bye. See you on the 20th.
Yep. Yeah, man. And then, so we've gone through the submittal stuff. And so the next piece, go ahead.
In these specifications, I just want to point out, or say that along the way when I start the bidding process, before I do submittals, I'm collecting the data. Say it's something we don't buy a lot and I have to find a new vendor. I'm putting the link to the website of the product that I spec'd or the
Yep.
product that I bid from. So now I have this collection or this database because some of the stuff we do is kind of out there. And it's like, I don't know where to get that from. I got to call a person who tells me the guy, Steve, at this place is the one to call for that thing. And then we do a job like that, right? So what we're doing is we're walking through the bidding to now we're speccing so we can still copy and paste that. So if I do my homework on the front end when bidding and not just getting steel price from onlinemetals.com just because it's available and maybe 20% more. So I leave myself a little room in there to fluctuate when the job sells or whatever.
Right.
But like actually get a quote, save a link to that quote for the weird stuff. Obviously, now I've already done the work to prepare the package for my installer.
So what we do is there's like a document section in
Right.
Simpalo, and
Right.
so all of the quotes and everything go in there.
And before I worked at Memphis Fence and used Simpalo for this stuff, I was just my Excel spreadsheet. I would do what I expect or what I think or what I paid last time, then an actual, and then just copy and paste a link into one of the cells. So when it's time to do the work, I'm not going back through the email like, oh shit, what lock box was I supposed to use or what lock mechanism? You just click on the link.
Oh,
That's
I did
the one I
that.
scoped.
I did it that way a lot, where it was just like, oh, here's the price. I'm just putting that in my Excel spreadsheet and I'm getting this quote done.
Right.
And then 6 months, 8 months, a year down the road, whenever I have to go back, I have to do it again.
Right. You got to scramble to figure out which one. But
Yeah.
I mean, you're doing the work. You're sourcing it to begin with.
Yep. It's just a discipline that's really good to have to go ahead and put all of the information someplace that you can get it if you sell the job.
Right.
Right. So you don't have to go back and do all that legwork again. So 100% great point. Yeah. It's really good to organize these details in some kind of way that you'll have access to them later. And then kind of rolling right off of that, we have to give the details to the installers so they can go out and do the job.
Right.
And
so for me, all the work I've put into bidding the job, presenting it to the customer once the contract's approved, I basically already have all I got to do is like delete the price and then give it to the installer.
Yep. So in fact, the cover sheet for my submittal normally is my proposal with the price removed.
Yeah. Cool.
And so like I at least just kind of started off with that. Just again, here's my scope of work. And then, I mean, that all goes to the installer. If it's 80 or 90 pages long, I'm not giving them that, but I'm at least giving them the drawings.
I hear Tony in my head, Tony Thornton. We attended one of his classes at one of the trade shows in Groton, Connecticut, right? The Northeast Regional Trade Show. That's what it was. And he said, set your team up for success. And so in me doing that little extra work to copy and paste a web link for a product, I've in turn set my team up for success.
Well, and in a sense yourself.
Well, of course, but that's where it starts.
Yeah.
I mean, that's been a lot of this professional development stuff and the podcast we were listening to and all the things we were doing here. I mean, and the purpose of the podcast is to continue to grow. And so, to take responsibility from the top, right? I mean, so that's where we start, right? Is in my Excel sheet. The organization at my desk is what determines how the the quality and efficiency of the job goes.
Definitely has to be organized from the beginning.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, bidding it is the beginning.
Right. That's
So,
right.
I think we could do better at our like field assessments in the business to business world and actually getting the details at that point.
I agree.
So Kenny does a really good job.
Kenny does a good job.
So in the like, chain link business to business department, I think they've got it nailed down pretty good, but
Kenny's, I mean, he basically collects the information as if the job has been sold.
Yeah. I mean, he could just take his stack of paper and hand it to the installer and just walk off.
Well, and that's what he's doing.
Right.
So, which is cool because it stinks to have 3, 4, 5 site visits just because 1, I went out and saw it, then 2, I went out and took measurements, and 3, I took them the proposal, and
Yeah.
Which I don't know why anyone's doing that. You know, I'm kind of exaggerating, but you know what I'm saying. For
Right.
whatever reason, you need to make 3-4 site visits.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not an efficient use of time. All right, so we have to give it to our installers. So at this point we've bid the job. We did a good job looking at all the details. We've turned in the submittals. We did a good job looking at all the details. My opinion, when you make submittals, you should make the work orders at the same time. All right, go ahead and like just spend the extra 30 minutes or whatever it takes and put that information on a work order. A lot of times when you turn in submittals, it may be months down the road before you actually are on the job. And so it's a little bit easier again to do it all at the same time instead of trying to have to go back later on and remember what you did.
Relearn what you already spent time working on.
And you definitely don't want your installers out there on day one and they just spend the whole day trying to figure out what's going on. Where's this fence go? What kind of fence are we putting in? What are we supposed to be doing here? Like none of that is good. It's gonna happen to some extent, but you want to try to have as much as you can on the front end. Yeah. So you want them to be able to install the job in the right place with the right material.
Right. That sounds like a good thing to do.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So should we ready to hit number 5 here?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. We've talked about this some in the past, but number 5 is assuming that contract has anything in there for your protection.
Mm.
I've encountered some people before who think or misread or whatever you want to say that and they are led to believe that the contract has something in there to protect them. I completely disagree with that. I think that contract is in place to protect the owner, the architect, engineers, whatever designers, the general contractor, the pedestrians walking by, and that's it. And so it's there to give you all of the rules and all of the things that you have to do to protect everybody else. It does give you a price, and it does say that they're going to pay you if you do the work, and they accept the work.
Right.
And then there will be some stuff in there like, even if we accept the work that you did and the owner doesn't pay us, then we're not going to pay you. All of that kind of stuff will be in there. So, like I said, we did a whole episode, I think, about like contracts and stuff like that in the past, but just to kind of recap a little bit on that. So spend some time looking at the contract, read the contract. It sucks. It's a pain in the butt, 100%, but you want to understand what you're signing. You don't want to just be like, oh, I have to sign this for them to let me do the work. Here we go.
Give me the money.
Yeah, right.
Where do I sign?
Right. So if you're like brand new to this, you can find people that will help you read a contract, right? And help you to understand the contract.
Right.
Use Google to look up words if you don't understand what they mean. There's no shame in that.
That's funny. Chat GPT, read this contract.
I just don't know. I agree.
I'm trying.
Like I'm down for all this Chat GPT stuff, but man, I don't know that I would trust it to decipher a contract for me. That kind of makes me a little nervous.
Scrutinize this contract.
Right. How is this contract trying to screw me?
What parts of this contract should I be aware of?
Yeah. So you can redline a contract, right? I had a contractor one time tell me, oh, these big GCs, they just put whatever they want in there because they know a bunch of idiots are going to sign it.
Right.
And he was like, don't be afraid to get that red pen out and go to town. And I've done it. Insurance is a really popular one that I've redlined and kind of gone back and forth. I mean, there's been times where I went back and forth with people for a month to get the insurance piece alone sorted out. Because, it's really generic. It's like specs, right? I was looking at some specs with Claiborne earlier today, and it was, man, they had every possible height and gauge and everything in there of fence. And I'm like,
6 foot, 7 foot, 8 foot.
All the way up to, I think it went from like 3 or 4 foot tall to 12 foot. And I was like, okay, so, you gotta just sit down and kind of go through that stuff and sort out what it means. But
this was crazy to me, the insurance thing, the primary non-contributory.
Yeah.
When we read that one that I just sold recently, I was like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Is this for real?
Mm-hmm.
They're saying that our insurance will cover everybody, not even the sub, not limited to the subs that we've hired, but other subs and trades on the job.
Yeah.
It's like, is that what I'm reading? And
Yeah.
you're like, yeah, man, that's what it says.
Uh-huh.
So our insurance would be exhausted, and only will the general contractor's insurance come into play once ours has been exhausted.
Right. Isn't it crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
wild.
again, that contract has nothing in there for your protection.
It's pretty wild.
But I mean, it's, the price you pay to play the game. So I've ran into this situation a couple times where people have been under the impression that they would be allowed to increase their price if their cost increased between the time of the proposal and the installation. And I won't say there's a 0% chance that that's going to happen, but
Right.
it's pretty close. So,
Right. So plan for material increase. If you've seen a
Mhm.
5% increase a quarter, then plan for that, right?
Yep.
When you bid the job.
Yep, for sure. So you gotta be able to kind of look out in advance a little bit and predict what your costs are going to do. And I mean, material is one thing, but labor is another.
That's a good point.
I mean, that's a big cost.
Right.
And then
One thing that we've run into that you can't really foresee is a labor shortage, which puts you in. So we have employees, permanent employees, and on occasion we'll be short some employees and have to use a subcontractor to install a job that we intended on doing in-house.
Yep.
Which that's just something I don't know if you call that a mistake. It's just oh crap, this happened.
Yep. It's
kind
just
of a
what
thing.
happens.
Right. Because
Yep.
we're obviously going to do the job. We're not going to not do the job. Right. I mean, well, I think that's one of the jobs we're working on currently is in that position.
Mm-hmm.
And we got a quote for one portion of the job from one subcontractor. Now the job's coming around. He's not available. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're having to use someone else.
Yep. Price you pay to play the game.
That's right, baby.
So I've had experience with jobs where it was, let's just say 2 or 3 years after we signed a contract, we're actually on site doing the job. And the job grew, right? So they needed an extra 1,000 feet of fence. And I called the guy up and I'm like, okay, so this 1,000 feet of fence is going to cost more than it did before. And just, they want you to do it at the same unit price as what you bid it 3 years ago.
Right. I guess you could say no.
Well, maybe.
I mean, are you contractually obligated to supply a 2,500 more feet of fence?
Maybe. That's a good question for a lawyer, not for me.
Exactly.
This is a PowerHouse Fence show, not PowerHouse Law School. So that's a good question. In my conversation with that general contractor, it was presented as if basically I had to do it. And it sucked. Now, yes, if you wanted to fight and go hire an attorney and go to court and do all of that, you very well could do it. But you just got to think about I don't want to wind up blacklisted or, on the no bid list is kind of a fear that we run into a lot.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've been worried about that, to be excommunicated from the construction industry at large.
Right. They're all going to go to their,
that might be a bit extreme. Like I won't even be able to be a plumber,
They're going to go to the construction.
Plumbers are cool. My father-in-law's a plumber. No offense to plumbers. I didn't mean it as like the worst trade or whatever.
Right. They're all going to the construction meeting.
It's a shitty trade.
And they say, don't hire this guy.
They have the meeting, man.
Yeah. So, like I said, I had to do additional work at the same unit prices as I had bid 3 years prior. And
that's terrible.
Yeah. They didn't care that material had increased 30% and the labor costs had increased 30% or whatever it was.
Right.
It didn't matter.
You did it yourself.
Yeah.
You drove out there and installed fence yourself.
Right.
Okay.
After 5:00.
So here's the thing we talked about a little bit already. We touched on this some. You mentioned the trucker cage as an example, but the contract will have some kind of wording that says, not our problem if you didn't include it in your proposal, but you are contractually obligated to supply everything covered in the scope of work.
Yep. And so that
That
kind
could
of
be a panic bar. That could be a whatever. Right.
so that's the thing that kind of concerns me with the job grew, because now that's a part of your scope of work. I don't know how that would work out.
You
And-
changed the scope of work.
Yeah, but what's the language in the contract? Does it say that you're required to cover the
Dude,
scope
they
of
would.
work?
I would just be doing that everywhere I go. Oh, 1 foot of fence. Oh, scope changed. And you're obligated.
Well,
It's
obviously
1,000 feet of fence.
but they have to
Sorry.
pay you for the additional work.
That's true.
But if you bid 1 foot of fence and then it turned into 1,000, you're going to do the 1,000 at the same price you
Well, in
did
our
the one.
circumstance, that'd be amazing.
That would be fantastic, actually. I would be down for that all the time.
Right.
But
7
when
feet
it-
of fence turned into 7,000.
When it goes from 50,000 to 200 and it's 14 hours away, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So, anyways, yeah, make sure you pay attention to all the scope of work, right? And because the contract is going to say that you did.
And guess what? Software can help.
Yeah, it can.
Very simple software, such as Simpolo.
Yeah. And so we talked about redlining the contract. And just to be clear, like if you redline a contract, doesn't mean the general contractor is going to agree to it. They may just go hire someone else. But in my opinion, that's better than doing something you feel like you're going to get, screwed around with. But
Something you're uncomfortable with and refuse to sign. I think the common example we come up with is schedule.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah, schedule. Oh, that 50,000 feet that you want done in 14 days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. People are unrealistic sometimes. And sometimes people are realistic.
And what if they had a liquidated damages clause?
Remember that?
For the 50,000 that they added to the scope with the
Remember
they're
that one
contractually bound to do 50,000 more feet at the same price you bid it at 3 years ago within 30 days, or else we'll charge you 250,000 a day.
Right. Remember the one we saw that was like what, $153.17 a day or
Yeah.
something?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Like, what? Why just drop the change?
I remember what I wanted to say earlier.
Let's hear it.
This
Get it out.
is episode 19 this year, I think. So we've done more episodes this year than we did last year.
Okay.
Wow.
More episodes in this 4 months than we did all year last year.
Well, remember we started in August,
Oh, okay. Well, that would make sense.
right? So we've done more this year than we did last year. So that, anyways, that
That's
was interesting to
fantastic.
me. earlier.
Good. Wow.
All
Dan's a
right.
math genius.
Let's run through mistake number 6 real quick. Not understanding the administrative, managerial, whatever word you want to put in there, burden that comes with the job.
You're talking about me. You just called me an administrative burden.
This whole episode was Zach's mistakes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm making them live. I'm making them live.
That's how you learn, man.
Did
That's how you
I?
learn.
We didn't mention that I overlooked some. Oh, we did. I overlooked some details.
Yeah, you did overlook some details.
Son of a gun.
I saw earlier that you bid a job that you bid montage 2 and the spec said montage residential. And the response, whenever I think Claiborne did a follow-up or something, the response was, man, y'all were out in left field on this one.
No wonder.
I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. So
Oops.
things happen, man. People make mistakes. And that's why you got to bid a lot of jobs. You can't just bid 1 or 2. We all make mistakes. The other day, Claiborne, we had bid a job and he was getting ready to send the proposal. He's like, wait a minute, did you include concrete in this? And I went, oh crap, no, I didn't. And it was like a 20,000 foot job.
Dude, why is concrete so hard to remember?
I don't know.
Simpolo is what helps me. No kidding. This isn't an advertisement. I've been goofing off with the Simpolo advertisements.
Yeah.
But sincerely, to
'Cause
be
it
able
is-
to add it to the product and it adds it in there.
Yeah.
I actually have built a field where it says concrete touch-up paint on the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
So it's like just always there,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know why I think all of us here struggle with remembering
It's
concrete.
the Memphis fence curse.
And you get so caught up in like making sure your specs are right on your material and everything else. And hey, don't forget there's concrete specs.
Well, I think because we have it here, like I don't get it quoted.
Mm.
I don't call for a quote. If you're going back and forth with a vendor and doing all the research for panic bars and hardware from online and then getting steel quoted through your steel vendor and all that stuff, right? Like
Mhm.
that is pretty. It's a big thing on the mind, right?
Yeah.
I have an email for it. The
Right.
concrete is just sitting over there under the barn, and it's like we'll just get it when you need it.
Well, just wait. Sometimes you'll do a job that has some special spec concrete or whatever on it. So TDOT is one. Get this.
Right.
So we've done some TDOT jobs in the past, and we've done some stuff where like it's during the construction of a certain project and somebody hit the fence. And we have to go out and we have to do a repair. And that repair requires us to set 2 posts. But you know what
they
you
want
have
to
to
call
do?
a concrete
You
truck.
have to call a concrete truck to come out and pour your 2 footings.
Nice.
They, because their qualified product list or whatever doesn't, or at the time didn't include Sackcrete or any kind of that pre-mix stuff. And so you had to have a approved mix from a concrete plant. They had to haul it out there and give you a 5-gallon bucket of concrete.
Right.
It's crazy.
This administrative burden, that
Oh, yeah.
group of words is so heavy.
It is.
So we deal with subcontractors. I used to have a small business. All of those guys, myself included, in that position. I mean, the ongoing complaint is administrative burden.
Mm.
I mean, that's like the crossing the threshold from being a small business to potentially growing into selling to general contractors. The administrative burden is almost insurmountable. A friend of mine who's been doing it a long time is like, dude, surmounting that hump or whatever is just so difficult.
Yep.
And
you run into it a little bit in the business to business world. If you're working for big corporate America, you have some of that kind of administrative burden, but it's definitely common in the GC world here. And so I got a little list of things. We're at 1 hour and 2 minutes. So contract and submittals we've talked about. Safety submittals,
right,
we haven't talked about, but that's a whole nother thing.
Right.
I ran across one that we had turned in on a job earlier today, and it was an email that had like 20 attachments to it of all of these different safety documents they required. There's extreme examples of everything. A lot of people don't freaking care about you giving them safety submittals at all. A lot of them make you go crazy with it. Sometimes you have to do training for every piece of equipment you're going to use on a job site. So if you're going to have a skid steer, telehandler, scissor lift, whatever, you got to have safety training for all of those.
Or a safety administrator or whatever you call that, part of your team for the duration of a project.
Yep. So you have to appoint a safety person for the job.
Safety advisor, let's call them that.
I can't remember the word that they use, but whatever it is.
Inspector.
Inspector Gadget.
Expector.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to have a chain of custody.
Expector. What is that?
Sometimes you got to have a chain of custody for your material or material certification saying that it is indeed domestic. This is where it came from. Right. So that gets pretty interesting. And then there's there's paperwork that goes along with the bills you're going to turn in.
All the meetings.
We've talked about that. Meetings.
All the meetings. I mean, a lot of the younger people are cool with doing like Zooms and like what's it called?
Virtual
phone calls where you call multiple people at once, those kind of things.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
But like some of the older guys I work with are still, I mean, I go out just to be like, kind of say, hey.
Yep.
It seems like.
Yep.
Which is cool with me. I mean,
they want you to come out there to look at sheet C103 or
I'm like,
whatever.
I got it on my desk. Like I have it on my computer right now.
Right. Yeah. So there's that kind of just like pop-up meetings.
Right. I said, I don't have C1. Well, you come out here and get it. I'm like, can you not just like email it to me?
Because we asked. So this GC. We asked him for a plan set.
Yeah.
Because I looked and I was like, well, we have a handful of plans that we used when we bid the job, but like that's it. And it's been a year or more ago.
Right.
And we're like, all right, can you send us a current plan set? Well, you can come on out here and
I got an extra one. So yeah, I mean then I had to do that.
Yeah. So
you might have to do that.
But a lot of times you have weekly meetings.
Yeah.
Right. So they'll do like weekly progress meetings, and
which I will say administrative burden wise. It could be a burden. Well, it's a time thing that you need to be aware of. You're going to have to commit the time to.
Yep.
But as far as like the efficient flow of the job, what a way. The jobs that have had weekly meetings for me have been the ones that have been closest to schedule, or like just that much easier to schedule.
Yep. I think it's good because you all sit in a room or in a Zoom meeting or whatever together and kind of talk about what you're facing.
Right.
And you can coordinate with other trades and all that stuff right there.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think it's good. Just you kind of have that like struggle sometimes where when do I come to the meeting? Right. Because I'm
Well,
a
that's a
fence
good
guy.
point.
It's going to be 2 years before you need me. Like, can you let me know, maybe a few meetings before so I can start coming? Most of them will do that, especially the bigger contractors that are having these like well orchestrated meetings and stuff like that. Some of them will do like a kickoff kind of meeting. And then, of course, there's just meetings that pop up along the way. So, and then you get like ASIs and, other kind of changes that come out in a lot of these bigger jobs. I mean, there might be like 200 or 300 of them that happen throughout the course of the job.
And those are fun too, because again, like the meetings, it's like, I don't know that all these apply to me, and a lot of them don't, but I got to read the thing.
Vast majority of them will not apply to you. But in my experience, people aren't very good at being like, hey, make sure you look at this one.
Right.
Right. And I'm not saying that it's even their job to do that, but
Sure.
you just got to kind of look at all of them and, then coordinating with other trades. We kind of talked about if they're
Coordinating with other
having
trades, man. Yeah. One of the jobs recently we did, the dirt work took a long time.
Yeah.
And even, one of the ones I'm working on now, and they
Mhm.
wanted us on site, and we were like trying to be there. And one day I just said, man, I can't come for 2 hours a day anymore.
Yep. And you get like, you got to do that. And people will get mad at you. And like, we want to provide this great service and everything. But at the same time, if they're not ready for you, we just got to stand up and say, no, you're not ready for me to come to the site.
Because I'm throwing away a day just to do 2 billable hours
To
worth of
show
work.
up. So you're happy.
And so I told him that. So I was just like, man, the site's not ready for us to perform work. And at this point, it's becoming inefficient, and I can't come until the grading's done.
The best thing we've done is send somebody to go look at the job before you send a crew.
Right.
When you get that call, hey, we're ready for you. Go out and take a look.
Though, when they ask and they're like, we really need you out here today, and you want to be, like you say, afford good customer service and, meet their expectation. But then sometimes it's like, oh yeah, you want me, but you're not ready for us.
Mm-hmm.
We're not ready. So,
okay. So that's the list. There's 6 things. All these things there's something you can do. You just got to know to do them. Right. And you got to figure out how. So the point is, like, be prepared to run into stuff that you haven't dealt with in the past if you've never lived in this world, and then be prepared to figure out how to get it done. Call people, right?
Call Dan.
Yeah, there you go. Call Dan.
901. I'm just kidding.
Dan Blanc, Dan Wheeler,
Dan T.
Oh, okay.
Dan the Toolman Turbyville.
The phone number is normally on the bottom of the screen, so yeah, I'm not hard to find. But yeah, call somebody and ask them questions. Don't be afraid to do that. But be prepared to have somebody in like in the office, so to speak, somebody that can spend the time preparing the work orders, going to the meetings, answering phone calls and all of that stuff. That's a little bit tricky if you're kind of like an owner operator and you're out on a job site and, you get a phone call. Hey, I need you to take a look at this and get me a price back on it today.
Right. I'm wearing installer hat today.
Right. So, I mean, just be aware that things like that pop up. And I mean, the biggest thing that I can tell you is just soaking up information. Get to some events, Tony Thornton's events, the, AFA events have a lot of training stuff at them. Go to some of those events and go to classes, but also you can talk to people after the event and just kind of soak up whatever you can and make sure that you gather all of the information you can and just try to be as prepared as possible whenever you do run into a hurdle. And that's all I have.
Good.
I'm done.
Thank God. I don't know what word I said.
Thank what?
I don't know. It was like it just came from my spirit. It was just it was just a spirit word. No, No, thank you for that. Thank you for participating in this, asking me to participate in this. Thanks all who participate in this. Eladia especially, this is for you. All right, all the PowerHouse listeners, followers, viewers, and associates and friends and all that. Thank you guys so much, and we are fitting to shut this down.
See ya.